Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. And like always, we're excited because we have a new set coming out, which is going to be fun. Duskmourn is only a couple weeks away. Actually, I think we're only 1 week away from the pre-release. So holy cow. Strap in, everybody. It's right around the corner. We're getting spoopy season started early. And so I'm Graham, also known as Hamhawks42 on the internet, and I'm joined by Carlo, C. Favretto_Jr. How's it going, man?
Hello. Going pretty good. Getting ready for new cards. Like you said, we have pre-release coming up this next weekend. So it's going to be a busy Magic week, and then we got Streamer Event coming up on Wednesday that we're going to talk about, and that means we get to play new Standard version 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Let's go. Yes. It's going to be exciting, I got to say. So, yeah, Bloomburrow came out, brought rotation finally. We've had some opportunity to play with it. We understand Caretaker's talent's good. Okay, great.
Oh, yeah.
And now, that is the best card from Bloomburrow as far as Standard's concerned, right?
It's the best card in Standard, in my opinion.
I'm not going to fight you on that. There are a couple in Duskmourn that might challenge it, or at the very least introduce some new archetypes that maybe can kind of shake things up a little bit and maybe knock it off the throne there. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Anyway, that's not necessarily what we want to talk about today, because again, Duskmourn, here we are. Actually, coming to think of it, with the way that the schedule lined up, we haven't really had that many. I think we have only had like one episode where we were really just talking about Bloomburrow Standard, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then just straight into spoilers. But anyway, it's all good. This particular set, the Standard sets come out about once a quarter, and this just happened to line up that Bloomburrow was at the end of one quarter and Duskmourn is at the beginning of another. So the gap between them is a little tighter than it often is. But whatever, here we are. So Wednesday is going to be the Streamer Event, which I don't know about you, but I freaking love the Streamer events. They're always a blast. And huge shout out and thank you to Wizards of the Coast for bringing them back, because we were without them for a little while, and we've had them back now for over a year, but it's every time that I get the email, it's just like, yes, we're still doing it. It's always exciting.
It's like it's on the horizon. It was super early in preparation for this one too, which is exciting, because now we have some more folks who are in it, and I think there's going to be a major difference between this Streamer Event and ones in the past, in that this one has a ranked queue in the mix, which we have not had before. Before it was just, hey, the parameters of the Streamer Event are, here's a play queue for Standard Best of 1, and the goal is to feature all of the new cards from Duskmourn, or whatever set it was. Now we have a ranked queue that is meant for more competitive decks. And my understanding is some folks who are going to be participating in the World Championships are invited to the Streamer Event to participate for this more competitive atmosphere. Now, y'all know us by now. We play Jank regardless, if it's ranked 100%. Ladder or not. So I don't know about you, but I know no matter what builds I'm playing in that ranked queue to see if we can get from bronze to mythic in the short amount of time, because that's got to be pretty fun.
If you could pull that off, my goodness. Yeah. Get after it.
Yeah. So, it's interesting though, because Bloomburrow, a lot of the cards were very playable in Standard Best of 1. If you take a look at some of the really good decks right now in Standard, especially like Red Black Lizards. The deck's pretty much all Bloomburrow cards, with the exception of a few.
That's a Bloomburrow draft archetype. Yeah, just the Standard deck. Yeah. Well, and the mouse deck as well has a lot of the same. Yeah,
exactly.
It's similar vibe. Yeah.
And so I think there is one particular archetype that we'll talk about today, that very clearly is a Duskmourn sort of strategy. That is, the majority of the cards that we're able to play with some older cards are going to make for a really good competitive deck. Or archetype of a deck. So we'll be talking about that during the podcast today for sure.
Absolutely. So I want to add a little bit of clarity to this. If you're not familiar with the Streamer Early Access events, what happens is the creators who were invited actually get VIP access for a day. And this time we're actually going back to 24 hours. Sometimes they weren't so much, but this time we are, which is awesome. That way folks from all around the world will get a chance to participate, kind of no matter what time it is for them, which is fantastic. And so normally, there's the one standard queue. And what will happen often is folks like us will build around something goofy like Millennium Calendar and find ourselves getting paired up against somebody who's taking a known meta deck and trying to add
Yeah.
one or two new cards to see, do these actually improve the deck, which is a worthy attempt, a worthy thought process and a worthy exercise. But when the goal is to get, Twitch clips of the new cards doing fun things,
Yeah.
that's tough to do when you're going up against your mono reds and your Golgari mid ranges that are just
Right.
excellent and known quantities, And so that's been a challenge, and kind of the two perspectives tend to butt heads a lot. And so what they're doing now is they have the ranked queue and the play queue, and you'll notice we're talking about a VIP account on a separate server. Like, this rank, whatever rank we gain and whatever experience we gain, doesn't translate to our normal account. Like, that doesn't, there's no crossover whatsoever. So if you hit Mythic, you get to show off that you hit Mythic in the, within 24 hours. Like, going up against excellent members of the community and, potential world championship players. So, okay, that's really cool if you can do it. Like, that's, but that's a tall order. So I wouldn't, don't go too hard. Don't stress yourself out too hard on that. But
we're both coming with our jank, so
of course, yeah.
Be
So we'll see what
prepared,
happens.
world championship players.
I love it. And so the main difference, the hard rule that they've put in place to differentiate, does my deck belong in one queue or the other, is whether or not it includes 10 non-land Duskmourn cards. So if the list that you're working with has at least 10 non-land Duskmourn cards, you can go to the play queue and you're good. And that makes sense because that's a decent proportion of your deck. And so you're probably going to see those new cards. And that's great. Because, we saw it, especially during the Thunder Junction, early access event. Slickshot Show Off was a new card. And so people were running just Slickshot Show Off and a whole bunch of other mono red cards. And it just felt like the mono red deck. Like, yes, that is technically a new card, but, like, is that the only one you got in there? Because, like, anyway. it didn't feel like we were showing off anything new, really, at the end of the day. Because the play pattern was just so familiar. And so that's been a challenge that I've faced as somebody who's trying to just experiment with the goofy things and try to come up with weird combos and janky nonsense using some of the new cards, which is always the goal. That's been something, a grievance that I've aired on my streams a number of times, to the point where it becomes, honestly, I should add, I'm pretty sure that's against Twitch TOS, but some kind of drinking game where if I ever complain about, a meta deck in the early access, because it happens. But anyway, and so this is something where Wizards has gotten feedback from both sides, and it's been, they've identified, like, well, there is merit to tuning known decks with new cards, and there is merit in wanting to just play the janky nonsense and you watch the new cards go burr. And so,
I mean, especially when you see how, much we've seen a resurgence in Standard right now, both in Arena and in Paper Magic, and Magic Online also. Folks they have like tuned Bloomburrow decks now. Standard is probably is at an all-time high for the last couple of years. And sometimes those new players now just want to see, hey, what new cards can I add to my already tuned deck? Rather than playing like completely all new cards. So it's totally valid. And I think what you will see during the streamer event is a mix of both. All right, someone who's playing a lot of the new cards and somebody who's playing maybe just a couple new cards in a deck that they think is really good.
Yeah, well, and in the in the announcement, like, if you're going into the ranked queue, you're welcome to even just bring there's no requirement. In the rank queue, there's no requirement to include Duskmourn cards at all. Yeah, which is new. That's a new requirement. Although it is one of those things. If you have the VIP access and you do have a couple of new cards, like, I would recommend trying them. But that's personal taste, and depending on what kind of content you're trying to make, it's all good. So I don't know. It's a cool change. I'm very on board with it, and it feels like they're listening to feedback and they're taking action. So I'm curious how it's going to play out. And they seemingly expanded the pool, to get more folks involved, which is also fantastic. Shorten queue times across all of them, and just get everybody stoked, and get more folks fired up for that, for Magic in general. A+. It's all good stuff. So when we're jumping into Duskmourn itself, this upcoming Wednesday. So Wednesday, September 18th. Yeah, it's going to be starting. So this is going to be a 24-hour one, and the queues will be opening up at, I believe they said it was 10 a.m. Pacific. Here I'm trying to do conversions in real time. 1 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, 1 p.m. Eastern time is when they're going to open up, and they're going to be live for 24 hours up until 1 p.m. Eastern Thursday. Yeah. So yeah, and I know we're both going to be involved, and you've actually done a little bit of homework and engaged your community, who are some phenomenal brewers. And I'm not just saying that because a number of them hang out in my chat too, but like for real, they're some of the coolest minds on in the Twitch audience, in my opinion. Not super biased or anything, but yeah. So you've actually done some homework.
I'll say it. I'm biased.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but no, for real. Come into our chats and hang out with these folks. They're great. They have a mind for interesting synergies and effective builds, or at the very least, interesting, fun ones. Even if they're not effective, it's great. So anyway, you've actually engaged your community already, and I pulled together a couple of lists that they've been putting together to actually showcase some of the new cards. And I gotta say, they sound amazing. So let's dive into them and let's see what strategies do we think Duskmourn is going to open up, or at least what are we going to try, right? Like what can we I don't know,
many things.
What's going to change?
So many things.
Yeah.
So just as a preface, like Hamhawk said, what I've been doing ever since I've been invited to the streamer events is I've always dedicated it to the community brews. So folks are able to build decks via Moxfield, which is an amazing website, by the way, not sponsored, but
they're great. Yep,
they're great. Check them out. You can build decks on there. You can separate it by format, and you can just send somebody the link, and they can check out your full deck list, and it's amazing. And you can have a visual or text grid, whatever is good for you.
Yeah, and they're crazy fast on getting the cards updated. So when all the reveals are done, you're good to go. They're all there.
They're there, and it actually notes on the side, hey, this card's not legal in this format yet. So all the new previewed cards right now have a little asterisk next to them where they're colored in sort of way where it shows you, hey, you will eventually be able to play this, just not yet. And so every streamer event, I have a channel in my Discord where I tell folks, here, submit your Moxfield links here. That way I can copy them. I can put them on my Moxfield profile, and then they just live forever there. So there's a little folder that'll say, Duskmourn Streamer Event Brews. So in case anybody wants to check out all the cool brews everybody came up with, you can just go to my Moxfield profile, click on that folder, and all the deck lists are there for you. So you can upload them to Arena, you can make changes. It's really, really helpful. And so we got a lot of different builds today, and what I think we're going to see a very clear theme is around enchantments, because Duskmourn is an enchantment-themed set. And so something I've been seeing a lot lately is people trying to make, the old-school Boggles deck, but in a new standard version. And a lot of that I attribute to the reprint of Ethereal Armor. So if you don't know what Ethereal Armor is, it is a reprint in the set. It is uncommon. Ethereal Armor costs 1 white, enchant creature, aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and has first strike. So just by itself, being the only enchantment on the battlefield, it gives your creature +1/+1 and first strike. And it does nothing but grow from there.
And the fact that first strike's included in the mix means that 1/1 first strike for 1 is, not an amazing aura, but fine. Yeah. And the fact that it's going to get so much more. I mean, there's an enchantment land in this set, for goodness sake, to give you an idea of how many enchantments are lying around. So yeah, it's and there are enchantment creatures, all kinds of stuff. The amount of great enchantments that are coming in, and I don't know about you, but I've been I've been main decking enchantment hate right now in standard because of how many amazing enchantments there are already. And you'll notice, Ethereal Armor, it's just any enchantment you control. Doesn't have to be an aura, doesn't have to be the aura attached to that creature, just all of them.
Yep.
So yeah.
So this first deck that we're checking out in particular was designed by our friend Eyelids, and Eyelids is an amazing deck brewer. Hamhawks knows how many times we used to watch Eyelids on the pizza box open, just cranking out the victories, right?
Every single time I got that note, go to table 12, it's Eyelids. Oh, sweet, we're gonna have a good one. Yeah, I think this is gonna be a good match. I know it every time. Yep.
So taking a look at the other enchantments, so obviously this deck in particular is playing 4 Ethereal Armor.
Hmm.
There's another really good enchantment in Duskmourn for 1 white. It's called Shard Mage's Rescue. And for 1 white, this is an enchantment aura that has flash. And it says enchant creature you control. As long as it entered this turn, enchanted creature has hexproof. So, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1. So when your opponent goes to try to cut down or go for the throat or something on your creature, you just flash this in for 1 white. You pump the creature even more. If it's got ethereal armor on it, it gives +1/+1, and it makes that removal spell fizzle. For 1 white mana, this is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. And in the Boggles deck, I mean, the way that works in so many different formats is having a 1/1 with hexproof, and that's really critical in order to keep the creature alive. Well, we don't have any 1/1s with hexproof because Wizards learned their lesson, and they will never reprint those in Standard. So,
Right.
we have to kind of make do with other things. This is a phenomenal tool to to kind of do it yourself and make sure that your one creature that's fully loaded survives, because that's paramount. If at any point your one creature doesn't survive, all bets are off and your whole deck kind of folds. But if it doesn't, your opponent's probably going to be dead in a turn or two. So this is huge.
So in addition to those 2 cards, this also has 4 copies of Sheltered by Ghosts, which is another enchantment here in Duskmourn. For 1 and a white, enchant creature you control. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Sheltered by Ghost leaves the battlefield. It gives the enchanted creature +1/+0, lifelink, and ward 2 for 2 mana.
For 2 mana.
For
It's an Oblivion Ring
mana.
that gives ward and lifelink to the enchanted creature. What?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So when we get to play cards like Shard Mage's Rescue that I just showed you, that's protecting the creature that this is enchanted to in case of spot removal. Now,
and the ward 2 makes it even tougher to target as well. It's doing all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. So this card is very good. So that is 12 of the enchantments. The other 8 that are in this deck, 4 is from a card called Feather of Flight, which is from Bloomburrow. This card also has flash, and then when it enters, you draw a card. It costs 1 and a white, and enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has flying. So you're adding another keyword, you're drawing another card. This deck, I haven't told you yet, but it plays only 20 lands. So the idea is that you're going to be drawing some cards while you are growing your creatures here.
Nice.
And the other enchantment is from Brothers War, and this is Audacity for 1 green.
Yeah.
Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. And when Audacity is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. So if they end up destroying your creature for some reason, you're going to be able to draw a card out of that. This deck is playing 4 instants, 2 copies of Royal Treatment, which for 1 green, this from Wilds of Eldraine, target creature you control gains hexproof until end of turn. So another hexproof effect. Create a royal roll attached to that creature, and the royal roll gives your creature +1/+1 and ward 1. So more protection on your creature on top of that.
Amazing. And the fact that it leaves an enchantment behind. I mean, that's, ethereal armor counts it. The whole, love it.
Yep. And then it's playing 2 copies of Unwanted Remake, which is a destruction spell, right? It costs 1 white. It's an instant from Duskmourn. It says destroy target creature, its controller manifest dread. So this lets you get rid of like a big threat that's on the board, and then they manifest the top card of their deck, and it becomes a 2/2 that can be turned face up.
Everybody in Standard is going to get familiar with this card pretty quickly, because it's going to see a lot of play. Oh, yeah.
For sure. So I told you about all the enchantments in the instance. So what creatures are we playing in this deck? Well, starting from Duskmourn, we are playing 4 copies of Optimistic Scavenger. For 1 white, this is a 1/1 with the Eerie effect. Whenever an enchantment you control enters end, whenever you fully unlock a room, put a +1 counter, +1/+1 counter on target creature. So that counts for any creature. So it can grow itself, or it can grow any other creature that you have on the battlefield. Also for 1-drops, we are playing from Wilds of Eldraine, Toadstool Admirer.
You guys remember
This
this?
is
Probably not, right? Unless you played a lot of limited. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a 1/1 for a green with Ward 2 that you could pay 4 mana, 3 and a green to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So you really are just looking at this card basically as a 1/1 Ward 2. So it already has pre-protection on it for when you go ahead and slam one of these enchantments that you're playing on top of it. Then for our last 1-drop, we are playing 2 copies of Armored Armadillo from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This is 1 white for a 0/4 with Ward 1. And you can pay 3 colorless and a white to give it +X+O to end of turn, where X is its toughness. So all of your enchantments are growing its power and toughness. You can make it really big late game for 4 mana.
Interesting.
Yeah. Take a look at our 2-drop. Our only 2-drop in the deck is, for creature anyway, is Elvish Archivist from Wilds of Eldraine for 1 and a green. This is a 0/1 that says whenever 1 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control, you put 2 counters on it, only once a turn. Whenever 1 or more enchantments enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card, and it triggers once each turn. So you're guaranteed when you slam an Audacity on top of this or Ethereal Armor, draw a card. Gather yourself into some more pump spells, and that'll work pretty well.
Well, and you notice we had a couple of spells that are instant speed that have that allow an enchantment to come in, so you can trigger it on your opponent's turn. Whenever you see the ability that only trigger once per turn, if you can find ways to trigger them on your opponent's turn, they become so much better. I mean, well, literally twice as good if you can do it consistently. Yeah.
And then for our only 3-drop in the deck, we are playing Danitha New Benalia's Light. This is from Aftermath, and it costs 1 and a green and a white for a 2/2 with Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an aura or equipment spell from your graveyard. So in case your auras hit the bin for some reason, we can cast them from the yard.
Okay. I look at Magic cards all the time. It's literally my job. I have no recollection of ever seeing this card before. Aftermath was one of those where there were a couple of cards that made a big stink and we all kind of locked onto them and forgot a lot of other ones. And this was one of those that clearly just rolled off my brain because it didn't have a home. It had no, it wasn't supporting anything out there. But in this case, that actually looks really good. I'm surprised.
Dot card.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Danitha's all of the various versions of Danitha. She synergizes with auras and equipment, and she has a lot of keywords. Like, sweet. Nothing wrong with that. I'm actually a big fan. But this is really interesting.
It's a great card. When I looked at this list first, I thought that an auto include would have to be Calyx.
I was about to say that.
Aftermath. As the 3-drop, because the Constellation ability on Calyx, says when an enchantment energy put a counter on a creature, and then when an enchanted creature deals damage, you get to make a copy of an enchantment on the battlefield. So, like, for me, making copies of Ethereal Armor is like a no-brainer, right?
That speeds up, that turns a 4-turn clock into a 1-turn clock real fast. And I was thinking Sheltered by Ghosts, being able to stack multiple copies, add the additional ward while removing your opponent's stuff, that's disgusting. So
I have to imagine that like a future version of this deck will eventually include Calyx. But it's pretty cool to see Danitha included here just for the keywords.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because Calyx is the one that I thought of, and I know I'm gonna try a variant of this that's absolutely gonna have Calyx as like a 2 of in the there because the potential, like the top end potential there is insane.
Yeah.
But no, Danitha also pretty great, and being able to recur your stuff out of your graveyard, I mean, that's as good as drawing cards in the right scenario. So yeah, good stuff.
So that's Eyelid's version of Boggles. Now this deck is playing 20 lands. It is playing 6 plains, 2 forests, 4 brushland from Brothers War, 4 Razor Verge Thicket from Phyrexia will be one. That's the green-white fast land. And then 4 of the new Verge, Hushwood Verge. That taps for green or taps for white if you control a forest or plains. So making sure all the time that your lands are entering untapped is very important in this deck because all of your things are 1, 2s, and 3s, and you want to make sure that you're curving out every game.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, that rules. Yeah, I'm sweet.
Yeah, I can't wait to play with
Awesome.
this deck. It seems so
That
fun.
that that deck's gonna be amazing. Well, and the other thing is, um, they're clearly pushing it. Like all these cards that we're talking about, just, they all line up so nicely. There's no way that when they were designing this set, they weren't selecting certain things specifically to inject a Boggles deck into Standard. I'm sure that
Yeah.
was an intentional decision because it just lines up so nicely. And yeah, and all
Now,
those includes just, I'm 100% on board. Yeah.
interestingly enough, this wasn't the only like Boggles deck to be submitted, which is no
Mm-hmm.
surprise
Yeah.
for me. There was a Bant Boggles deck
Ooh,
that was
okay.
submitted, and I'm not going to go through the whole deck list, but it definitely is playing Calyx, Guided by Fate, that we just talked
Yeah.
about, but it's also taking advantage of Ivy, Gleeful Spell Thief,
Ooh.
which has not rotated from Standard, and a lot of folks forget about this card because we were
Mm-hmm.
playing it a couple Standard rotations ago with like Venerated Rot Priest and
Mm-hmm.
March of Swirling Mists, if y'all remember, to
Oh,
try
yeah.
to like trigger your opponent to get poisoned out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But fun fact, when you copy any of these enchantments on the battlefield and Ivy's out, Ivy then gets a copy of these enchantments put onto itself. And when you're playing cards like Ethereal Armor, you get to make copies of Ethereal Armor, and you're getting two pretty big creatures right away with First Strike. So think about this new type of a deck that is, after we just talked about the green-white Boggles deck that Eyelid
Mm-hmm.
submitted, essentially playing the same enchantment suite. But being able to play cards, so we've got the Shadow Mage's Rescue, we got the Sheltered by Ghosts in this deck, the Ethereal Armor, Audacity, but also playing from Murders at Karlov Manor had an aura for 1 blue, and it's called Curious Inquiry. And it says enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you investigate.
Ooh, okay.
So that way you get to develop, because since it's 3 colors, you can't play like the consistent 2-color build that's going to let you
Mm-hmm.
draw a bunch of cards like we used to. So you get to play cards like this to create clue tokens that you can eventually sacrifice to draw. And a new creature you get to play in this deck that will help you draw cards is Entity Tracker from Duskmourn. This is the 2 and a blue human scout that has flash. It is a 2/3 with Eerie. So whenever an enchantment you control enters, or you unlock a room fully, draw a card. And this is not a once per turn.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start chaining 1 and 2 mana enchantments, or even when you create a copy off of Ivy or off of Calyx, that enchantment token is entering the battlefield and you're drawing cards that way. So this will let you keep refilling your hand,
That's a
which is pretty
powerful
sweet.
value engine. Yeah. Well, and it's a body that you can throw stuff onto if you don't have anything else. So, I mean, yeah, nice.
And in this deck, P-Thread in particular, who was the submitter of this deck,
Mm-hmm.
is also playing Ossification from Phyrexian will be one.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the enchantment that you throw on a basic land and you exile a creature. So it's almost like you're playing extra copies of Sheltered by Ghosts without the buff. And you can also copy this with Calyx and, start you just
Yeah.
exiling all the creatures.
If you've never gotten to a position where you have Calyx and an Ossification online, it does feel really good because like, yeah, you can play a creature out or you can play out a Planeswalker. I don't care. Like my one evasive creature is gonna keep smacking you, and I'm just gonna keep doing this, and yeah, and that just became that much easier. Yeah, I dig it.
Yep, and then this mana base also is pretty cheap. This is a 22 lander deck that is playing some mixture of the fast lands like Razorvert's Thicket and Seachrome Coast and Botanical Sanctum. And also taking advantage of playing basics and some fabled passages to try to make your mana base a little bit better and making sure you got basics for that ossification.
Yep. That's the one balancing element of ossification that I think is a really clever design that makes it, significantly more fair, is that you have to have a basic land online. So you can't just be running 5-color good stuff and have a 2 mana exile anything,
Right.
like you do have to be like kind of judicious about what deck you put it in and how you adjust your mana base to, prepare yourself for it. So yeah, putting it in a 3-color deck can be challenging, but Fabled Passage is really helpful for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. I dig it, man. All of those sound amazing. I think finding the best 75 for a standard Boggles deck is going to be a really interesting challenge that a lot of people are going to be working on over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and you know something that obviously these decks are going to be weak to is Wrath effects, right? You know, we still have Temporary Lockdown that's in standard. You know, that exiles things that are CMC2 or less. We obviously have Sunfall, amongst other things. There's a 3-mana Wrath in Duskmourn that destroys either tapped creatures or untapped creatures. So the biggest thing that you got to worry about when you're playing these types of Boggle decks is just don't overextend your board. Getting 1 or 2 creatures out at any given time with a bunch of enchantments is probably going to be good enough. You want to make sure you're holding creatures for later in the game when your opponent starts being able to mass remove them, because quite frankly, the spot removal effects aren't going to work against the Boggles deck. They have too many instances of Hexproof and Ward and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and actually, given all the Boggle stuff that we've seen, there are a lot of ways to get around, you know, Hexproof and Ward. I mean, obviously the sweepers, but you also have Sheoldred's Edict is still legal. You know, that's like a legacy playable card that doesn't see a lot of play right now in standard, because we have access to things like Go for the Throat and Cut Down that just sort of do the job better for the moment. But, you know, if a Boggles deck steps up, that all of a sudden steps in and becomes relevant. There are also cards in this set that can shut down Ward completely, so that's gonna, you know, that might be a factor. There are a couple black cards. Like Nowhere to Run comes to mind. 2-mana flash enchantment. Again, enchantment. So when it enters, a creature gets -3/-3, and creatures your opponents control can be the target of spells and abilities though they don't have hexproof, and ward abilities don't trigger. So it's a pretty brutal enchantment for dealing with this kind of effect. And so the tools are here to counter this, so don't think that you're just gonna, you know, take off on a rocket surfboard to Mythic, you know, immediately. Like, it's gonna take some work, but the tools are here to, you know, for it to be powerful. So good stuff. Awesome. What other decks are the good folks working on? I know I have some ideas, but you've got actual lists, so let's go ahead and
so you were asking me before about like a Reanimator list.
I mean, of course, because a lot of cool reanimation spells are in this set, and they clearly want that to be an option. And so I was curious, like, hey, did anybody take a look at, like, because the new Black Overlord is very Reanimator centric. They gave us a good 4-mana reanimation spell, which is like nuts. Like, that's something I never thought we'd see again. I mean, it has some downsides, but in any event. And there's even a new instant that we haven't talked about yet that I have a sneaking suspicion is going to come up. If not, I will shoehorn it into the conversation. Like I do. But so what's the first list that we have on that front?
Yeah, so this list is, just FYI, mostly Duskmourn cards, right? So taking into account, we want to show off a lot of these new cards. So this one was submitted by Heimdall. And Heimdall submitted a deck that is an Abzan Reanimator deck. And so let's go through the creature suite by mana cost. Okay. So to start off, we've got, as a 1-drop, Valgavolth's Faithful. So for 1 black, you get a 1/1 that you could pay 4 mana and sacrifice it to reanimate a card at sorcery speed, right? Reanimate creatures card. So simple. For our 2-drops, we have 3 copies of Overgrown Zealot. So this is a 0/4 elf druid that taps for a mana of any color, or tap for 2 mana of any color, only to turn permanents face up. That's going to matter in a little bit, because I'm going to tell you about some of the other cards that are in this deck.
That's interesting. Yeah, okay.
For 2 mana, you can also pay the impending cost for Overlord of the Baelmerk. So this card originally cost 3 and 2 black, so 5 mana, or you can impending 5, which means it's gonna like stay on the battlefield as just an enchantment, but not a creature for 5 turns. Right. And it says when it enters or attacks, mill 4 cards, then you may return a non-avatar creature card or a planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. So you could return a land, let's say, if you want anything that's not an avatar. And there are plenty of cards that are not avatars in this deck, even though there are also a lot of avatars. So keep that in mind. So that when this comes off impending, it'll be a 5/5 that attacks and gets similar triggers.
Yeah, actually, it's only creatures or planeswalkers. You can't actually get a land with it, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry, not avatars.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, it's almost like a mulch effect, which I mean, 2 mana
Yeah.
to mill 4. That's a pretty standard rate, and I was playing Mire Triton, and those kind of effects, or Undead Butler all the time, gladly in my Reanimator decks, and this is very similar to that, which is lovely. And the other cool thing about that is, with Impending, it's on the battlefield as an enchantment with those counters on it. If you can remove the counters in any way, or blink it, or something of that nature, you do now have a 5/5 creature that will also trigger on attacks. So, or just with some patience, because you just get the effect, which milling 4 and effectively drawing a card. If you have enough creatures and planeswalkers, that's worth it.
Yep.
2 mana, hit this, draw your Liliana, play it on turn 3, like. Great, you're living your best life, or your Tyvar if you're doing City's Root stuff like I'm doing. But anyway, because it was funny, the moment this came out, so I got a DM. It's like, this is going in your Roots deck, right? It's like, 100% day 1, yeah, no question, 100%. Absolutely, yeah. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, so no, this effect, these Overlords are going to be legit. This is a very powerful kind of effect.
And they're not legendary.
Your enchantment removal. And they're not legendary. That's the other thing.
Not legendary. It's so nice.
Bonkers. Yeah. No, these are full on the new Titans. It's it's kind of nuts. I'm wondering, how long is it going to be until somebody breaks like Historic with Solemnity in these? Is that it's probably not as good as Solemnity 9 lives, but you could do the same,
Yeah.
Why not both?
Janky stuff.
there are opportunities. There's some things to be done here.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah. So I'm sorry. Continue. What other creatures do we have here?
So
of the 2 mana or more.
3 mana at Impending. Impending 4 is Overlord of the Hauntwoods.
Ooh.
So for 1 and double green, you can cast this on the enchantment part, not as a creature, right? Impending 4.
Mm-hmm.
When it enters or attacks, create a tapped colorless land token named Everywhere that is every basic land type. So this helps ramp you mana on 3. So you're like, why are we playing ramp cards in this Reanimator deck? Well, it turns out most of the creatures you're trying to reanimate are pretty high mana cost.
Yep.
So being able to ramp yourself a little bit does certainly help. And then this does become a 6/5 that does the same thing when it attacks.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, that's actually, in my experience playing Reanimator, which is, it's my favorite strategy. And this is the Everywhere token, by the way, for the video feed. They came out with official artwork for it. It looks very haunting. I like it. It definitely has that, like, what, Nightmare Before Christmas, with all the doors to all the different realms. It's kind of that vibe, which fits,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like it. But anyway, so the idea of ramping in your Reanimator decks is critical. Like, and you see it in Pioneer, right? Like, Vein Ripper was problematic alongside Sorin. Well, they had Galta and Mavrin. Like, there was a 12/12 Trampler that Sorin could have been thrown down on turn 3. The difference between those two cards, I mean, they're of comparable just total power level, but one of the major differences is Vein Ripper was theoretically castable. As a 6-drop black card, those black or Rakdos vampire decks could play it, in some situations. Whereas Galta Mavrin, like, if Sorin doesn't show up, it's a dead card in your hand. There's nothing you're going to do with it. And that makes a significant difference, like a huge difference. So in your Reanimator decks, selecting things that you can cast in a pinch, that's also a great way to play around Graveyard Hate. Like, if your opponent throws a Lay into the Void and you don't find your enchantment removal, just ramp into it and just cast it out
let's
fairly.
Just ramp into our big creatures and nice slay line.
Yeah. It's like, cool story, bro. Could you tell me again? Yeah, it's and to the point where you can even add more reanimation or more ramp in your sideboard and those kinds of things to get you. And so, like, is this a Reanimator deck, or do I just pivot it into a ramp deck? Like, a lot of those decks require a lot of the same pieces. So yeah. Anyway, so I like that. I think that's a really smart include here. Yeah.
So, of course, we're playing Abzan, so we have to be playing the other Overlord. Overlord of the Mistmoors is, you can cast for Impending for 2 and double white. For Impending 4, it is a 6/6, and it says when it enters or attacks, you create 2/1 white insect tokens with flying onto the battlefield. So for 4 mana, you get 2/1 flying creatures, which is just great. And then when it comes off the impending cost or gets blinked or something like this, then you have a 6/6 Titan that is creating creatures every time it attacks. So putting some more pressure to the board. Aside from
White Grave Titan. They gave White Grave Titan this time. I love it. Yeah.
It's amazing. And the creatures fly this time, which is extra amazing.
Absolutely.
So, of course, it wouldn't be, a true Duskmourn deck without playing a copy of Valgaboth Terror Eater. So
Oh
this is
yeah.
very much still in this deck. Not as multiple copies, but just a one of, right? Valgavoth is your 6 and triple black for a 9/9 flying lifelink. Ward says sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. And then if a card you didn't control would be put into the opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you exile it instead, so it turns off your opponent's graveyard. And during your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. And if you cast a spell this way, you can pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. So big, lot of text, 9-line, flying lifelink that you hope to reanimate for 4 mana.
Yeah.
Or mana in this case. So we'll get more into that in just a moment. And then another one of copy creature in this deck is Altanok the Thrice Called, also from Duskmourn. It is 5 and double green for a 9/9 with trample. That says whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you draw a card. Or you could pay 2 mana, discard it, and return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, how we talked about Overlord of the Baelmark, milling 4 cards, the potential of you putting lands into your graveyard. Altanok can actually reanimate a land from your yard and then be a reanimator target in the graveyard as a 9/9 trample, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I also really like that it's uncommon, because that's one of the things that, if you want to be able to do all these fun reanimator shenanigans that the deck has in limited, having a good uncommon target is so important. And here we go. Yeah. And it puts itself in your graveyard. It ramps you while putting itself in the graveyard. That's that's such a beautiful line of text on a 9/9. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So now let's take a look at the sorceries, because between the instants and sorceries, there's going to be some fun stuff to do. Number 1, we're going to play 4 copies of Say Its Name for 1 and a green. It says mill 3 cards. Then you may return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. You can exile this card and 2 other cards named Say Its Name from your graveyard, search graveyard, hand, and or library for Altanok, and put it onto the battlefield at sorcery speed. So when you cast your 3rd, if Altanok is nowhere to be found, it will be found. And put onto the battlefield. So it's pretty cool. This helps self-mill you and can help you hit your land drops. I mean, you can always put the creatures in your hand, like one of these big Titan creatures, or if you need another ramp element, like Overgrown Zillet. So it has many purposes in this deck. And I think is a pretty powerful sorcery for 2 mana.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, this seems really good. I mean, we were talking about mulch earlier. This is similar to that. I mean, you're not milling quite as much, but it's doing, 3 cards, you mill 3 and then grab a creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. I'm almost playing that anyway. And so to have this added bonus of being able to pull out a 9/9, awesome. And the flavor, it's very Candyman-esque, the idea of, or Beetlejuice, if you will. Or, the Bloody Mary or what other, I don't know, saying stuff into mirrors a lot is apparently, I don't know, there's something creepy about it. And so, yeah, and so horror stories have taken that on there are a lot of them. But anyway, it's doing that. And I appreciate that. That's a trope that, you can play, and it'll be interesting. Yeah. And if you pull this off in draft, please let us know. Yeah. Very curious about that. That'd be amazing. Yeah. Anyway.
And so other sorceries we're playing are 2 copies of Split Up, which is a 3-mana wrath spell. 1 double white to choose one, either destroy all tapped creatures or destroy all untapped creatures. So early cheap removal, which don't affect your overlords when they're on impending because they're enchantments. So you don't necessarily have to wrath your own board here, which is nice.
Love it.
We are playing 2 copies of Rite of the Moth. We talked about this in the previous podcast episode. This is 1, a white, and double black for a sorcery that says return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So if it would ever die, you exile it instead. And it also flashes back, but for 3 colorless, 2 white, and a black. So you essentially can cast this twice as long as it remains in your graveyard and your opponent doesn't mess with it. So that means you could reanimate any of your overlords, the Altanok, the Valgavoth from your graveyard on turn 4 with this card if you happen to mill it into your graveyard by then. And it's flashbackable. So even if you hit like an Overlord of the Hauntwoods with Rite of the Moth, and you reanimate it. It enters, it ramps you a mana, which means you only need one more land to cast it with flashback from your yard, which is pretty sweet. So like I said, even though like the big payoff is Valgavoth, animating all of these overlords in your deck is definitely worth it with this card.
100%. Well, and we've seen it with, the Trumpeting Carnosaur or even Harvester of Misery, this idea of these creatures that have like low mana value effects on them. So they're a 2-drop or a 3-drop, but they can be a reanimation target in a pinch is awesome. Yep. These overlords are bringing that something fierce. And so having a deck that's just riddled with them alongside mill effects, by the time you get to turn 4, I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to not find it, some kind of 5/5 or bigger in your graveyard to pull out, So I dig this. This is cool.
Yeah. And then we're playing 1 copy of Valgavoth's Onslaught, which is a green and double X spell that says manifest dread X times, then put X +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. So for 3 mana, you're manifest dreading once. For 5 mana, you're manifesting dread twice, and they are 4/4s. So it either gives you 3 3s or 4 4s for 3 and 5 mana respectively. If you cast it for anything bigger than that, your creatures are getting bigger, and you're manifest dreading more of them. So it's a pretty cool card. So you're like, why are we playing this card in the Reanimator deck? Because it doesn't reanimate anything. Well, let me tell you, we are playing an instant from March of the Machines called Scroll Shift. And Scroll Shift is an uncommon that costs 2 and a white that says exile up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, and draw a card for 3 mana at instant speed. So, if you manifest dread, let's say you're Valgavoth accidentally, and it ends up on the battlefield, you can pay 3 mana for Scroll Shift, and it turns it face up. As the Valgavoth option, and you get to draw a card. Surprise! But let's say that we don't even get to do that, because that is pretty cool, right? You can turn any of these overlords into their creature version for 3 mana, because it says exile target enchantment. So when the overlord blinks back into play, it enters as its creature version. So you get the enter the battlefield effect, plus you get to draw your card off the Scroll Shift, and you either got a 5/5, a 6/6, or a 6/6 plus 2 2/1s with flying for 3 mana. So you don't even have to wait for those cards to come off of Impending, which is pretty cool. So they can be Reanimator targets and Scroll Shift targets, which is pretty good in terms of like diversification of the deck, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah. I also wonder, like, Scroll Shift alongside like some of the disguise things from Murder at Karlov Matter. Like, there are a lot of those kind of decks that I've seen people rolling around with, and they're just a lot of the time they tend to be a little too expensive for what you get. And like Vannifar is like one of the only ways to cheat stuff in, and she's pretty inconsistent and a little slow. All these Manifest Dread cards all of a sudden kind of open up that idea of cheating out big things by way of blinking them from a face down status. So I'm very intrigued at this, and I think Scroll Shift is gonna be a little more viable because it hasn't seen a lot of play. I've gotten hit by it I think twice, and I was absolutely floored both times. I was like, well, really?
I played it occasionally with Atali, but that's me playing dinos.
I'm here for it. We
were playing Scroll Shift for a while, and then we just realized that another round is just a better Scroll Shift card.
If you're just trying to re-up ETBs. Well, and that's another one where another round is a card from it's from Thunder Junction. For 3, exile any number of creatures you control, then return to the battlefield under their owner's control. And you can repeat the process X times, but if you just pay 3, you just blink all your things at sorcery speed. So with this Manifest Dread and with enough copies of, because there are a couple of equipment that Manifest Dread when they enter, and there are also we also have cards like Cryptic Coat and whatnot. Well, all of a sudden a deck that has a whole lot of those effects in it and a couple in other rounds, because you only need to blink them once to flip them over. So I don't know, cool. That's a little bit of a diversion, but like this deck is tapping into some of that, because there's so many gigantic creatures in there, and you're manifesting, so you can take advantage of that. I think building around that more heavily could yield some pretty interesting results. And with
For
the
sure.
tallies and attractions and all that jazz that we know and have feelings about. Mostly positive, I assure you. But anyway.
Oh yeah, 100% positive.
This
No negatives
podcast
about
very positive.
Cassian Tali.
Oh yeah, other places maybe not so much, but for us, big fans. So,
Yeah.
so anyway,
And
sorry.
just
So yeah, the scroll shift. Are there
Scroll Shift
any
is
other?
amazing.
Yeah.
2 other cards in this deck. We got some copies of Live or Die.
Yes.
So that is an instant speed reanimator spell for 3 and double black. It says choose one, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, or destroy target creature. Now, I'm going to be completely transparent. I love this card. If you're looking into playing like Duskmourn cards, this card is great. And it's instant speed. But I will already let you know that there is a card called Coiling Rebirth in Standard that honestly I probably would play in place of Live or Die, because if you reanimate a creature, you can gift a card and get an additional copy that's a 1/1. So whether or not there's certain corner cases for that is yet to be seen. But instant speed version of reanimating a card for a 3 double black is pretty relevant here. Or destroying a creature if you need to.
Right, in a pinch. Yeah, that's always nice. It's funny. I think it depends on what your reanimation targets are, because Coiling Rebirth is a great call out, and a lot of people are using that, myself included, using cards like Vein Ripper and Trumpeting Carnosaur to be able to double dip on those. But it doesn't let you. It'll allow you to gift the card, but you won't make a copy of any legends that you pull out with it. And so, if you're targeting legendary creatures for reanimation, I would much prefer Live or Die over Coiling Rebirth. And so I know that I've paired Coiling Rebirth alongside Push Pull as ways to get just like those big crazy value turns, and that's a lot of fun. Like when it works, it's beautiful. I think doing something that's maybe a little more mid-rangey, that has Atraxa, Atali, and Valgavoth specifically as like your main reanimation targets, Live or Die all of a sudden looks really good, because if your opponent attacks into 5 open mana, they might just have a Valgavoth blocking all of a sudden, and that's a horrifying prospect, I think. So especially with instant speed ways to discard, you know, because like I'm going to activate my Collector's Vault, discard Atraxa, and then hit it with a Live or Die. Like, do you want to keep playing, or are we good here? Like, that's, you know, I mean, that's disgusting, and I love it. Yeah, so the fact that it's an instant, that exact same text box on a sorcery is like fine in draft, I suppose. And I'm not, you know, stressing it, and it's whatever. But on an instant, this is a big deal, I think. Earlier I was talking about an instant that I'm super jazzed about. This is it. Because we have Doesn't Add Up from Murders of Karlov Manor, which is an instant, but the creature comes in suspected, meaning that it can't block. And so that line, that combat trickery, isn't available. And I've double checked this thing like 3 times to make sure the creature doesn't come back in tapped, because I swear that would be the case. But no, it's untapped, ready to rock and roll. Yeah. So a reanimator where the creature can block at instant speed is a huge deal, I think. So yeah, honestly, this is one of the biggest boons that us reanimation enthusiasts have seen, and it almost offsets Leyline of the Void coming back.
For sure.
Yeah.
And anyway, you know, the only other obvious call out I want to make in terms of like the land set for this deck is you do want to make sure that you're playing the Surveil lands, because that totally matters when playing the Reanimator deck. So in Abzan you have Shadowy Backstreet, right? That's the white-black one.
Yep.
And you have Underground Mortuary, which is the green-black one. And you also have Lush Portico, which is the green-white one. So there are 3 Surveil lands. Now, do you have to play multiple copies of all of them? Probably not, right? Like, you do want to hit your Overgrown Zealot on 2 in this deck. You do want to play like a turn 1 or turn 2 Valgavoth's Faithful, just to have that out there. And you want to curve out on your impending Overlords, right? So you got a 2 into a 3 into a 4 when you're playing the Abzan suite, right? The mill, the create a land, make 2/2/1s. So, you know, you probably want to play somewhere between 3 to 6 Surveil lands in this deck.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Plus, you know, some number of fast lands and your basics, of course, and you have Pain lands and the Verge lands that come into play untapped and such.
I cannot express how stoked I am for the Verge lands. I think they're going to be huge in decks like this. Yeah.
And you have the green white one and the white black one in this set, right? Or I'm sorry, black green one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 of them.
Amazing. Yeah, no, the Verge lands are going to be an absolute game changer for this, because when you add all those surveil lands in, you want to make sure that you have all you're getting your colors and you're curving out on time. And right now, like, I don't know about you, but I know for most of my 3-color lands, I resort to running, more pain lands that I'm super comfortable with, just to make sure that I can hit things on curve. And it's gotten me into trouble a number of times. And if you ever look back at a game and realize, like, I took 6 damage off of one of my lands, like, ugh, that is not okay. And so, but at the same time, it's also not okay to take 3 damage on an attack that you otherwise could have interacted with because you weren't able to play your 3-drop. Like, that also sucks. So, the balance is critical. And the fact that the Verges are dual lands, if you have a Surveil land online because they're typed, yeah, I think, 3 to 6 tap Surveil lands, and then a bunch of the Verges. Like, that sounds lovely. I think that's going to be just fine. Yeah. I can't wait till they complete that set. Oh, I'm just, Anyway, I can't gush about those enough. I just can't do it.
Yeah, so we got some fun designs so far, and what are some of the thoughts that you've been working on?
Dude, honestly, like those two are going to be the big ones that have me especially intrigued. The other one that I definitely want to touch on a little bit, or like I definitely want to dive into, are some of the rooms. I'm very intrigued by those. I'm trying to think. What was the okay. There's one that I just saw that I don't have a deck for yet, but I want to find one. It's the Mirror Room. I don't know if you've seen this one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there's a 3-drop mode on it and then a 7-drop. The 3-drop is when you unlock this door, you create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it's a reflection and introduces other creature types. So it's a 3-mana clone, which already is below rate that we see for a lot of those, and that's perfectly fine. But it has Fractured Realm on it, which is a 7-drop. If a triggered ability of a permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time.
Panharmonicon.
Well, kind of. Like, we have a Panharmonicon in every set forever, right? We just do now. It's clearly on their checklist of things that they need to add to every set. Yeah. And they vary in what they cost, what colors they are, how they trigger, whatever. But like, a triggered ability happens twice is something that we just see all the time. The thing about this one that caught my eye is that it's any triggered ability. It's enters triggers, it's mutate triggers, it's door unlock triggers, it's it's dies triggers, it leaves the battlefield triggers, it's anything. They all trigger additional times. That strikes me as just absolutely bananas. I don't think I've ever seen a Panharmonicon just this universally useful. Yeah. And I mean, that costs 7 to put on the battlefield, and you can't cheat it out by the way that the rooms work. Like, you have to spend the mana. So I can't imagine a world in which I actually find a standard deck that's going to be able to make use of this, but I can think of a bunch of commander decks that are going to use it, and dang it, I want to find a way. I want to figure something out. So I'll probably tinker with that at some point, but that one definitely has me intrigued. There's another one that strikes me as kind of the I dare you build around in this set. That's probably a trap, but I want to test it. It's another blue one. It's always a trap. Central Elevator. When you unlock it, you search the library for a room card that doesn't have the same name as a room you control, and you put it in your hand. 4 mana for tutor, not great. But Promising Stare. At the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 1. You win the game if there are 8 or more different names among unlocked doors of rooms you control. So on your upkeep, if you have 4 rooms on the battlefield and they're all fully unlocked, then this opens up. This reminds me very much of Millennium Calendar as an alternate win con that is just asking so stinking much that it's probably not going to work. But as Janksters, as the MagicJank podcast, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't stress test these, right? And we didn't run them out and see if there's a way to take advantage of this and if there's a way to get there. Well, and there are some cards that are very narrow but specifically interact with rooms. And there's one that comes to mind that I think might actually be pretty decent. Now we're sideways here. Sorry. For the video feed. So Ghostly Dancers is a 2/5 flyer for 3 white, rather. So 3/5 for 5 flyer spirit. When it enters, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand, or unlock a locked door of a room you control. So this is the way that you cheat out those effects, and all of a sudden, the reflection, that Panharmonicon that costs 7 to unlock. Well, we pay 3 to pay the cheaper version of it. It makes a copy of Ghostly Dancers, and then we unlock the 7, the 7-drop side of it. And now all of a sudden, if we draw into any other copies of those, we can make more copies of Ghostly Dancers, which will trigger multiple times to unlock more rooms that we have.
Unlock the doors. Oh, hell yeah.
And so, like, it's a mana-intensive kind of engine that we're talking about here, and I haven't quite figured out the ramp pieces or some of the early interaction that'll allow us to actually get to this point yet.
Yeah.
But that's something I want to figure out, because the pieces are here, and I think that... Oh, and Ghostly Dancers also has an eerie effect. Whenever an enchantment you control enters, or whenever you fully unlock a room, you create a 3/1 Flying Spirit creature token, which, maybe it'll help you not die, or get in some combat damage.
Retro flyers, yeah. Isn't
that'll
there a
close out the
really
game.
good... Is it room... It's like a blue-red split. It's called, like, Roaring Furnace. I think it's, like, the red side of the card. And it costs like 2 mana. It's like 1 in a red. Yes, Roaring Furnace. There we go.
So Jeskai Rooms, is that what we're working with? I'm cool with this. Yeah, Roaring Furnace, room for 1 in a red. When you unlock this door, this room deals damage equal to the number of cards in your hand to target creature an opponent controls. Cool, like a little Fires of Victory situation. And then the other side, Steaming Sauna, 3 blue. You have no maximum hand size, and at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. Sick.
Yeah. So like this will keep up your card draw when you unlock both sides, which is just going to keep refilling your hand with the rooms and stuff. You can use the room you just talked about to tutor for this. So you can tutor for a removal spell, play the removal spell, have 2 rooms on the board that are ready for things to be unlocked. All of that sounds great.
Yep. I'm here for this. Yeah, this sounds great. Okay, yeah, no, this is fantastic. And this is another one that we've seen before where, the 2-mana removal spell plus, your Bone Crusher Giants, your Invasion of Tarkirs, the removal that shows up and then has utility in the late game.
There's a room that's a wrath spell too, isn't there?
Probably.
There's one, it's also a rare, and it's blue-white. Restricted Office is 2 and double white. That says when you unlock this door, destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. So it blows up big creatures. Okay. And then Lecture Hall just says other permanents you control hexproof. So then if you get this out early, you give your other rooms hexproof so your opponent can't spot remove them off the board with enchantment removal.
Absolutely.
So it's
all
like,
of a sudden,
hey, go for your Fade into History and destroy all the enchantments at once.
That's what you're going to need. Yep.
Good luck, because that ain't good against any other thing.
Well, and good luck with that too, because I have another card that I want to find a use for that is going to be some kind of a blinky shenanigan. And here I'm gonna rotate the image before I pull it up. Fear of Imposters. This is this is cancel with sets mechanic, but they put it on a creature, which is just weird, frankly. It's a 3/2 with flash for 3. When it enters, counter target spell, but that spell's controller manifests dread. So it's kind of like a mono blue Mystic Stake, but it spots him a face down 2/2. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting setup, and I think this is actually a really interesting one. I'm trying to determine if it's busted or perfectly fair. I think it's going to be good either way, but I think it's probably fair because you're giving them the blocker that'll kill your 3/2, when you use it. But it's still a hard counter for 3, like that puts a body online, and you can, if you have ways to clone it instant speed, or if you have ways to blink it, this is a great scroll shift target. Let me tell you what. Anyway, so just a thought there. Actually, come to think of it, there's probably some kind of combo where it'll counter your own spell to manifest dread. Then you can blink it, and I don't know. There's probably some kind of engine there. We'll go into the tank and come back to you on that. But anyway, so these room decks actually. So you mentioned the office and the lecture hall, and being able to give hexproof to your things is absolutely huge. Being able to protect any kind of engine like this that requires a lot of permanents online, you just need to protect them. So having that available is great. The restricted office is interesting though, because a 4-mana wrath that only hits creatures with power 3 or greater.
Yeah.
That's kind of rough because against like the prowess decks, they're small on your opponent's turn unless they've stacked up a whole bunch of, ores on them or whatever. But so this is the kind of wrath that would be very good against the Boggles deck if they've been allowed to get the ethereal armor down. But yeah, against go wide decks, it's really not great, which is kind of where when wraths are what you need. So it's interesting. It's one of those where maybe it'll be valuable, maybe not, depending on the matchup. This is one where it's probably like 1 or 2 in the main and then more on the board. That's kind of my feeling there. But interesting. But yeah, so rooms.
I imagine in this deck that you'd have to play like some other type of wrath effect, right? Unless like whether it be temporary lockdown or actually, playing the new split up card.
Split up could be good. Yeah. Actually, temporary lockdown would be amazing because the rooms, when they're on the battlefield, they have the mana value that's of both sides. So yeah, it's combined. So like restricted office lecture hall, this one we're looking at right now, has a mana value of 11. And so even the furnace that we were looking at earlier, it has the one side is only 2 mana, but the total mana value is well above 3. So that's no issue. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool. I'm looking forward to this, actually. The more we talk about it, the more hyped I am. It's going to be silly, but we're going to try it.
How many rooms can we do?
How many rooms can we get? Well, and there are, I believe, let me do a quick check. There are 28 rooms. 28 total. And, it's just like whenever they introduce a new card type, there are, there are ones that fit certain archetypes and, building around an entire card type. Whenever they give us a brand new one, it tends to be pretty rough. As somebody who has built many battle decks, including a new Mori battles deck in Historic, which, it's fun. It's not good, but it's fun. Actually, it plays better than it should, if I'm honest. But regardless, you have to be very specific about which ones you select, and you have to be aware that you're going to leave a lot of them behind. And trying to identify what is the best things that something like Rooms does is... That's a tall ask. Like, that's a tall order to try to figure out. And, because for example, we were looking at various dual color rooms, and there is, blue-white, and there are red-blue. There are 2 red-blue rooms, but those are the only dual color rooms. Like, so if you're not looking for you could even go mono with something like that.
And I think the reason for that is... From a limited perspective, they kept the room sort of archetype to is it, which is interesting.
But wait, is it in draft? That should be Spellslinger, isn't it? That's just what it's. Really, the draft archetype in Duskmourn is not. Anyway, it's not Spellslinger. Is actually going to be rooms, and that's really cool. I'm excited about that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see our limited friends really open that up and see what they can do with it. I'm excited. But yeah, so anyway, the rooms is definitely something that I want to experiment with. I'm going to be doing my own various reanimator shenanigans. I'm also curious if, all the Manifest Dread cards are actually here. Let me. The Manifest Dread cards really have me intrigued because of the various blink applications. What you were talking about, this idea of simply having a Manifest Dread situation happen. I mean,
I wonder if you could make just like, we were talking about Vanifar. So I'm wondering if you could make like some type of a Vanifar another round deck with a Manifest Dread.
Yeah, I think it could be done. Because we have the namesake card like Manifest Dread. This is the most on the nose card that I think they will ever print. Because there have been plenty of cards where like the type line and the name have been the same, and that's kind of fun in its own regard. But like this one, the name and the text box are the same. So there's a sorcery called Manifest Dread for 1 green, and all of its rules text simply say Manifest Dread.
I'm kind of like surprised. How they do the promo pack codes? Or the promo packs for standard and store play. It comes with like 2 rares or mythics and then an uncommon with a special art. I don't think the green one is Manifest Dread.
Oh, it sure could have been.
I'm pretty sure it's not. I'll check. But it's a miss. Because those promo cards don't have any reminder text. So imagine getting like the darkened promo Manifest Dread with just Manifest Dread typed in the middle. Like,
That's
that's a
amazing.
miss. It's got to be a miss, right?
Oh yeah, it was right. It was right there. That's a great opportunity. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
What does Manifest Dread do? It Manifest Dread. Like,
Yeah, you manifest dread. I'm gonna cast manifest dread, and I manifest dread. Yeah,
That's it.
it's fantastic. Yeah, I'm a big fan. So that there's that. You know, there are also a number of there's some pieces of equipment and whatnot. You know, and there are cards like Growing Dread, which is an enchantment with flash. When it enters, you manifest dread. Then whenever you turn a tournament, whenever you turn a permanent face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Now, if we're blinking, that text isn't necessarily going to be relevant, but it's still a face down creature at flash speed for 2. So I dig that. I was also wondering if there's some kind of application for Yaris. I don't know if you remember, or Yaris. Right?
The Gruul card from
the Gruul guy whose
Manor?
name I can't even remember how to spell it here. But yeah, from Murders of Karlov Manor.
Yeah. Yaris, right? Yaris.
I sure thought so, but it didn't. It didn't come up.
Yarus. Yaris.
Oh, that makes sense. But yes, roar, yeah. So Yaris, Roar of the Old Gods. 4/4/4. Other creatures you control have haste. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
And then whenever one or more face down permanents you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. And whenever a face down creature you control dies, return to the battlefield face down under someone's control. If it's a permanent card, then turn it face up. And so this is a scenario where if you have a creature face down, wait a minute. Whenever a face down creature you control dies, you just return to the battlefield face down, then flip it. So alongside cards like
face down. Yeah.
Pyrotechnic Performer, that deck was already a thing. I think this right here. Okay, if you were ever wondering why is Bartolome Orzhov, just so that those two didn't go together easily. Because if you could put a whole bunch of face down creatures on the battlefield and then simply sacrifice them with Yaris down and to have them flip face up, like that's just all gravy.
It'd be a mess. Lots of triggers.
Yeah, lots of triggers. But I'm wondering if some kind of like Jund Manifest Dread thing with Yaris and some sac effects or something might actually be pretty good. I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued because Yaris Roar of the Old Gods is a really bad card. Like straight up. It just is. And it's one of those where if you want to build it in Commander, you can, I guess, but you don't get any of the good blue morph stuff. So why would you? Like it's really awkward and kind of tough. And I always felt like this card had a lot going on, but face down cards are just slow. You know, I've seen a couple of Pyrotechnic Performer decks that are just like super like aggressive and explosive, and that I've seen those decks do some things. They're not super consistent yet, but I wonder if Manifest Dread is going to open that up.
Yeah, I think that larger problem though is a lot of the fast Pyrotechnic Performer decks when they first came out were like Rakdos. And right now, the mono red or Rakdos deck is just faster with Heartfire Hero.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yep.
Like that, and just splashing black for like the Callous Sellsword. It's just faster. It's not as cool. Don't tell me it's as cool, because it's definitely not as cool.
No, absolutely not.
But it's faster.
Yeah, but it is faster, which is crazy because I've seen the nut draw with, but we keep mentioning Pyrotechnic Performer. If you're not familiar, it's a 3/2 for 2 with Disguise for a single red. So you can pay 3, put it face down with Ward, and then you can pay 1 red to flip it face up. And it says whenever it or another creature you control is turned face up, that creature deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So it deals direct damage as you're flipping things up. And so alongside Yaris, I think the idea was you get this and a lot of other, disguise creatures to be attacking regularly. The problem is if you have to pay 3 for every single one of those 2/2s, it's just way too expensive. And we didn't have a good way to just get a lot of stuff onto the battlefield. And so, yeah, in looking at Manifest Dread, they were relatively safe with a lot of them, but there are a couple of pretty aggressively costed, 2-drops or 1-drops that in certain scenarios can manifest Dread. So I'm hopeful that an aggressive deck leveraging these pieces with Yaris as like the curve topper might be viable or might be possible. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. If you're going to be aggressive in red, you're going to go, maybe you go the lizard route, but for the most part, like, yeah, there are really fast aggressive options. And like, in what world do you want a Pyrotechnic Performer when you wouldn't just like to have a slick shot show off? Like,
right.
Sure. And yeah, we're on the same page there. Not as cool, but just more consistent.
Definitely not as cool.
Love it. Oh, good stuff. There's also another theme. I haven't quite figured out the deck for it yet, but I'm going to call it out. There are a couple of cards that clearly care about like small reanimation. Like you have for example, Patched Plaything. I don't know if it's going to be if this is going to be good enough for standard, but it's a 4/3 with double strike for 3. And it enters with 2 -1/-1 counters on it if it was cast from your hand. So for 3, that's a 2/1 double striker if you just cast it. But if you hit this with a helping hand, or there's a survivor card that can reanimate things that cost 3 or less. If you cast it from exile, if you hit it with a Ren's Resolve or something and cast it that way, like as long as it's coming from somewhere other than your hand, it's fine. And so even something, well, we don't have it in standard anymore, but even something like Reality Chip, or where the top of your deck is open, being able to cast off that. I'm sure there are ways to do it that I'm not thinking of right now, but
there's a couple reanimator cards for 2 mana. That care about something to be 3 mana value or less.
Yeah. Oh, and in white we have Helping Hand, or we lost Patch Up, but that's fine. Yeah, there are a couple of those, and I know in black we have like No One Left Behind from Brothers War, which for 2 mana can reanimate something like this, or for 5 mana can reanimate something big. So I don't know. There are a couple of cards that lean into that as well, and I wonder if because we have Helping Hand, the 1 mana reanimated creature with 3 or less. I wonder if maybe that can be viable. Outside of the Haughty Djinn Monastery Mentor builds, because those are fine, but yeah, what else is there? Oh, good stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. Oh, also, is it just me, or is Orphans of the Wheat pretty good? It's a 2/1 for 2, and whenever it attacks, you can tap any number of untapped creatures you control, and it gets +1/+1 for each of them. So it kind of can help you with your survival. I mentioned survival. Yeah. It is a mechanic where if a creature is tapped on your post-combat main phase, it gets to do a thing. So they trigger as long as they go to post-combat and they're tapped. The idea being, if you have to attack with them in order to tap them, you're putting them in harm's way, they survive it. Okay, cool. Well, this is just, you just get all your survival triggers, like straight up. Like, no matter, no problem whatsoever. And there's another card, actually, that we haven't touched on yet today that has survival that I would be remiss, again, as
do we get to talk about
fans,
green cards?
We are going to be talking about a green card that cares about that kind of effect. And I am trying to remember that guy's name. They are legendary, mono green, beastie. Kona, Rescue Beastie. This is a 4/3 for 4, 3 and a green, with survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Kona is tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield.
Atali, Primal Conqueror.
Done. Ship it. Yep.
Atraxa, Grand Unifier.
Done. Well, and in a couple months we're gonna get Omniscience, and so here we go. So yeah, Kona Rescue Beastie. The fact that you can cheat in any single permanent is kind of nuts. Like, this is the closest we are gonna see to show and tell in standard, probably ever. Like, until power creep takes us to a whole nother level by the next 3 years.
Until they just print show and tell into standard.
Until they just print until they reprint show and tell into standard. Exactly.
Yeah, why not?
So until that day. So in Foundations 2 Electric Boogaloo in 5 years. That's when that happens. But
print show and tell. Wizards, please. Print show and tell into Foundation, so we have it for 5 years. We need show and tell Omniscience, please. Thank you.
And give us Tinker while you're at it. But anyway, this thing, so 4/3 for 4, and at the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, you just get any permanent in your hand. So yeah, if you have a Tally, if you have Traxa, any of that stuff. So all of the Blink shenanigans we're talking about, all the Reanimator shenanigans we're talking about, all of that nonsense can absolutely coexist with Kona Rescue Beastie. And then you can also use cards like Sentinel Stalwart, which is basically a Springleaf Drum from Brothers War, or you know, we have the Children of the Wheat, although it's probably not going to fit the rest of the deck. But there's so many effects that can simply tap this. Simply a vehicle will do the job. You know, there's even a there's a new one. The new vehicle in this set that actually I think is going to that is going to fit with this perfectly. It is the Unidentified Hover Ship, which is a 3-drop, and when it enters, you can exile a creature with toughness 5 or less. And then when it leaves the battlefield, the owner manifests dread. So it's just a 3-mana O-ring. It just removes something, but it tees you up to be able to play Kona on turn 4, have Kona, you know, crew this vehicle, and then you pass through combat, and you get to drop your Atraxa. So, I mean, that seems pretty good to me. I'll definitely be tinkering with that, because cheating out big things is just absolutely fantastic. And this is, I mean, honestly, like, this is bordering on too easy, if we're honest. I mean, I'm assuming their playtesting proved that it was fragile. I think it's not an accident that has 3 toughness.
Sure.
You know, it's a 4-drop that dies to Lightning Strike. You know, it's kind of a souped up Elvish Piper is kind of the vibe I'm getting from this.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. I think that's neat. It's a little easier to abuse and a little faster than Elvish Piper, in my opinion, but you got to support it with some other cards. So
seems like a sweet commander, though.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it is legendary. So yeah.
Like, you can just play mono green big things and just tap your creature and put some big thing into play that may or may not be green. I mean, it could be Kozilek.
It sure could be. Yes. Actually, yeah, mono green with just ramp and with as much of those effects that give, you know, creatures the ability to tap for mana, like your Cryptolith Rites and you know, and Springleaf Drums and whatnot, alongside this in the command zone. So like, you're just ramping like crazy, and then if you drop this, your opponents have to remove it, or a big old Eldrazi or something to be dropped into the field immediately. That could be a lot of fun.
I don't need to cast Eureka and also let you put something into play. I can just put something into play. Why let you do the same thing? Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I love it. You know what I would want to do, though? The ultimate troll would be to jump through all those hoops, fire this off, to drop in like a tempting worm that allows my opponents to drop stuff down. That would be so dumb, but it'd make me very happy.
Taunting Elf. Just put Taunting Elf into play, so you have to block my Taunting Elf.
There you go. Yeah, I love it. I love this so much. Anyway, so yeah, Kona Rescue Beastie. I'm going to be tinkering with this. It's probably not, I don't think it's going to be consistent enough for Standard. And we've reached a point right now where cheating in large things, it has to be incredibly early and incredibly fast, incredibly fast and incredibly consistent in order to be competitive. And I don't think we're at that point anymore. Like, I don't think we have anything that's going to get us there. And a 4-drop creature that has to, you know, with a timed trigger isn't going to get us there. I don't think, but it'll be fun to experiment with. So, and maybe I'll do that deck we're talking about in Brawl, because who could be mad with, you know, dropping Ulamog the Defiler out on turn 4 off this?
Why not?
I don't see a problem with that. Why not?
Yeah, not at all.
Nah, it's all good. It's totally fine. Totally fair balanced. Yeah. Good stuff. Cool. Well, were there any other decks or cards that you wanted to talk about leading up to the streamer event?
I think those are the only decks I'm looking at for now. The other thing I'm really looking at is, so Magic Arena streamer event is on the 18th, which is this upcoming Wednesday when y'all are listening to this. The Magic Online streamer event is on Thursday the 19th, which I'll be participating in because I'm in the MTGO Creator Program. And obviously we get early access to Duskmourn, just like we do on Arena. It is a 24-hour event as well, but you can play any format you want on the Magic Online early access. So I think I'm going to be doing not only some drafting on there to, you know, get to know the new cards in time for the pre-release this weekend, but also I'm going to be doing some Pioneer testing, because the regional championships are coming up at the beginning of October, the first weekend of October in DC at SCGCon. And I'm not qualified for the regional championship, but I am going because they're actually having standard win gigantic card events. So I know y'all see in my picture back here, I have a giant Galta card.
Let's go.
I want more of these. So if I don't get in the Pioneer RC through an LCQ or Last Chance Qualifier, I will most certainly be playing standard events for big cards. Because I'm
Nice.
driving down, so that means I need a big card to drive back with me in my back seat.
Absolutely.
So we'll be doing those things. So I'll be testing some Pioneer with new Duskmourn cards on Magic the Gathering Online. I think we'll be testing some games with Jaffer because Jaffer is going, our friend.
Excellent.
He is
Yeah.
going. He is qualified for the regional championship, and we're kind of like going to be in this testing house. So that's going to be a fun time.
Ooh,
Let's test
fantastic.
some of these things in advance. So that'd be nice to test on Magic Online. And then also this weekend is pre-release weekend. So Friday and Saturday, I'll be streaming from my local game store, the comic book store, in Glassboro, New Jersey, and I will be playing limited events the whole weekend. So you'll see me twice on Friday, 3 events on Saturday. I'm excited. This is how I learn the new mechanics for the set, is through the events and through the pre-releases. So it's gonna be a fun time.
Love it. Oh, that's fantastic, man. Yeah, I don't have anywhere near as cool a slate as you do, but we do have the streamer event coming up this Wednesday. We've talked about it a lot. I'm very excited. Me and Carlo are both going to be there. It's yeah, be there.
Luna
Feel free
too.
to be square.
Luna and PZ will both be there as well.
Absolutely. Our
Just in
kids
case
will be there.
we have any cat enjoyers who are listening.
Absolutely. Yep. we are both proud cat dads. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, good stuff. It's going to be fun. Definitely can't wait. Oh, let's go. I'm already so stoked. Like, this set looks very, very powerful. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for the uncommon that that nobody saw coming. That's just going to rewrite, things. That everyone says, "Oh, of course we all knew this was going to be nuts." Yeah, that's going to be a thing. But I can't wait. Awesome. Yeah, so definitely tune into all of those various things. We also have links in the description for all of our content. You can check us out in all the places. Before we go, there was and we're also going to be in Vegas. We talk about that. We will talk about more. But MagicCon Vegas.
Yeah.
That's also going to be
MagicCon Vegas.
Yeah.
Y'all, it's like at the end of October.
Yeah.
What is today's date? At the time of this recording, this is Sunday, September 15th. Yes. I feel like we're in December already. What it is. 2025 is on the horizon. I'm losing track of
exactly.
dates. But yeah, the end of October is MagicCon Las Vegas.
Yes.
If you are going, Ham, are you going? You're going.
I will. I will be going. You better believe I'll be going.
I know you're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are doing a meet and greet on Sunday at MagicCon Vegas at 12:30 p.m. Vegas time. So if you're going to be there, Hamhawks and I are sharing a space for that meet and greet. So we're going to have lots of goodies to hand out to y'all.
Absolutely.
Whether it is MagicJank goodies, I know we got some MagicJank stickers. I got stickers here too. I'm going to bring. In case you would like some of those, we got the little MagicJank stickers.
Oh yeah, always keep the MagicJank stickers on hand. You never know when you're going to need them. Yeah.
I will have Luna tokens with me. I will have some channel tokens and stuff to hand out to y'all. We'll probably have some product that we'll be able to hand out and stuff like that.
More than likely, yep.
Make it a point to come by and say hello, because
I actually have some tokens. I have not. They're in the works. They're in production. I've commissioned some art for some tokens that I'm very excited about. I'm hoping to do a double-sided token as my business card this year. That is the 3/3 Beast on one side and a 3/3 Elephant on the other. So if you ever play Commander where you get hit with Beast within or Generous Gift, got you. I figured that's one of those that you should always have in your repertoire just in case. So yeah. So those will be there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to play Magic with you.
Yes.
And that being said, we'll have like special space that we can actually use throughout the course of the con for Commander games, or if you just want to sit down and talk and have a conversation, talk about Magic. Yes. We have that ability to do that. That will be in Creator Central. So if you're looking for the spot at MagicCon that it will be, you're looking for the little overhead thing that says Creator Central. All of your favorite creators will be there, so you can always stop by and check out all the meet and greets and all the special things that are going on, and just hanging out and having a good time playing Magic, because that's what MagicCon's about.
Oh yeah, I've been to a couple of these. I was fortunate enough to go to all the U.S. based ones, over the last couple of years, and it's been nothing but an absolute delight. And if you haven't just hung out in Creator Central at any of these events, I highly recommend it. I mean, if you are following Magic creators right now on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever, like your timeline just comes to life. They're all there. It's incredible. And they're all as lovely in person as you want them to be. Let me tell you what. That's been my experience anyway. Everybody I've hung out with and gamed with, even a couple of times when I've been very starstruck, if I'm completely honest, everybody's been absolutely approachable and lovely. So yeah, it's honestly so much fun. But yeah, very cool. So one tradition that we've added to the MagicJank podcast that we do most weeks when we're not running crazy over is a question of the week, which is just a fun question that we throw out there, sometimes magic related, sometimes not, to just spark a little bit of fun off-topic conversation at the end of the show. And I was thinking, with Duskmourn on here, we're going into the spooky season, and this is kind of on everybody's mind right now. And we're going into the season of jump scares in all the advertisements, which yay. But regardless of that, I was thinking, just out of curiosity, if you were to like get isekai'd, transported into a fictional setting that was horror related, like if you had to be like, if you were just teleported into a horror movie, what kind of horror setting, and assuming that you were like involved in whatever horrors are happening, what kind would you go for?
I'm not saying I watch a whole lot of horror movies.
Sure.
But
yeah, me neither. If I'm
like,
honest.
I always find myself to be the person who, when I watch a horror movie, you know how the people who like scream at the screen, like, don't go in there. Like,
get out the room. What are you doing? Yeah.
Are you dumb? Like,
don't investigate. You're alone. It's dark. What's wrong?
I think I would want to input into like the scenes where, like, obviously killer shouldn't go into this room, and I want to be the person that like intervenes. So like something like the OG like Halloween movies would probably work out pretty well.
There you go.
Or like the older Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Like, what are you doing? Don't go hide in the room with all of like the weaponry in the background if you're not going to use it. Like, hello?
I love I love that. The slasher movie where like the plot hinges on everybody just being very dumb and just be the person who's not dumb in that environment.
Right, or like when you're watching The Ring and the little girl hops out of the well, push her back down the well. Like, you ain't gonna do anything. Push her back down the well. This is why I don't watch horror movies like that, because that's me. If I went to the movie theater, I'm like, why is this happening this way?
What's going on here, guys? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here for that. I mean, I would either want to be in that kind of a situation or be in one of the comedies like Evil Dead style, where like, of course, a ton of awful things are happening and there's still a good chance I'm going to die, but we're at least, things are a little gonzo and weird on the way out. I think would be kind of fun. But the slasher movie is probably the correct answer, because in a lot of those scenarios, even if you're living in an environment where there is, just a human serial killer, you still are probably safe during the day, Yeah.
Well, put me into Beetlejuice, like, so I can start singing. So I can
the musical. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Misa Day. Yeah, like, put me in that movie. That sounds like a riot to be in. That's got to be a fun time.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Just like dancing in the air, like Winona Ryder, just like dancing to the song at the end of the movie. The original Beetlejuice, not the remake. No spoilers. I haven't seen the new Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new one yet either. And I haven't seen the original in 30 years. It's anyway, something like that. So yeah. Well, not maybe 30
is it 30 years? Am I that old?
I just had a moment where it's like 30 years ago I was 8. I mean, maybe. Yeah, no, it's anyway. Yeah, it's definitely 20. Solid 20. Yeah, that was a moment when I realized I was feeling old, when I described something as happening decades ago, like plural, like ooh, I don't like how that felt coming out of my mouth, but yep, here we are. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So hey,
what about you?
We can't stop growing old, but that doesn't mean that we or no, what's there are a lot of wise expressions. Just stay youthful, everybody. The number goes up, but keep playing. Keep keep playing and having fun. Anyway, but yeah, I like that. So yeah, the horror movie. Be the smart guy in the horror movie. Yeah, or the slasher flick. The slasher flick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I find myself thinking, I was thinking like, would I want to go to a zombie movie? It's like, well, no, because the world is completely boned in that case, and that's not fun. Yeah, like a post-apocalypse kind of situation. Nah, I would pass on that for sure. Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. Thank you. I can tell that we have reached the end of our podcast because I've started rambling incoherently. Yes, I'm aware.
Oh, please.
So, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and bring this on in for a landing. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Carlo, thank you for joining me, as always. It's absolutely fantastic.
This is always fun.
Duskmourn, Wednesday. Hop on over to Twitch. We'll be there along with a ton of other creators. It's going to be a blast. One of the best part about these streamer events is you get to watch like from multiple people's perspective. Like if you're watching your favorite streamer and they queue up against somebody else who's also live, don't give hand information and whatnot, but you can watch and get commentary from both sides, which is an absolute delight. It's so much fun. Like the magic category during the streamer events just lights up in a way that you just don't see it otherwise. So yeah fantastic. So
yes, we'll see you Wednesday, see you Thursday, and see you this weekend. Lots of stuff going on.
Fantastic. All right. Well, till next time, everybody.
Later.